If you're anything like me, and you might not be, but we're about to find out, then you have rolls of filament like this, or like this, that are almost empty, that you haven't thrown away yet because you're just waiting on that perfect print that's less than 100 grams of filament, because don't throw these out, I'm totally gonna use these, we can't waste plastic. And you still haven't used them yet. Well then Sunlu has come out with a product that's just for you and me. This filament connector aims to solve that problem by allowing you to splice together pieces of filament, so that way you can take this pile of old filament that you're not actually going to do anything with, splice it together, and actually get some use out of it. Let's take this bad boy for a spin and test two different things. Number one, does it even work? And number two, does it produce any visible artifacts in the print? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this roll of rainbow PLA that Sunlu has sent over that changes colors along the length. And I'm gonna run a print with it how it is, and then I'm going to cut it at a color change, splice it together, and see if we can see anything in the print where I spliced it. The way I'm going to do this is with vase modes, that way where I spliced it doesn't appear in the infill or an internal perimeter or something like that, so we can see if this affects the print in any way. So when you turn it on, you get this screen that you can see, and you can set it for the material that you want, and it starts heating up. And it's set to this temperature for PLA, 185, but you can change that through the screen. It does have different preset options. You can choose PLA, ABS, PETG, PA, PCL, and then back to PLA. Once it's heated up, you take your filament and you cut it on an angle. So you would cut this side like that. Then you would cut this side at a matching angle. So that way your two angles can meet up like that. Then you put each side in one side of the tube, something like that, so that the angles match up and it's in the middle of the tube. Then once this thing is at its correct temperature, you open the top, you open the inside, lift this out of the way, position the filament right in the middle, close the inside, and kind of push in as it's heating up. Then it beeps. You open the inside, you take it out, and now they're merged together. So what you do is you let it cool down, and then every time you close this inside, it hits this switch and sets a timer that will cause it to beep when the timer goes off, letting you know to take the filament out. So whether you have filament in there or not, it's gonna beep every time you close this, like that. Then once this is cool, you set this in the back of the machine like this, push it down in there, it clips into place, and then you close this down and it presses it onto a cutter. You pull it out of there, and then you can kind of just peel the tube off like that, and there you have two merged pieces of filament. So after this first test, I did the print where I just let the filament go how it is, and I did the print where I fused two of the colors together. And in this print where the filament is how it is, it's face mode, so it's very smooth. You can't really see any obvious transitions. And then when this filament switched over from pink to blue, I watched it and I put a little clip. As you can see here, the merge is about to enter the extruder, and right there it enters. And then here, it's about to start, and it starts right here. It's hard to see, but I promise it did. Can't really see in the clip, but I can promise you it was right about here where it did it. I'll zoom in so you can see it better. You really can't see any kind of obvious imperfection. You can't really see where it started either. I mean, with these layer heights, they're so small, you can't really see the transition where it went from pink to blue, especially in the middle of the layer, but I can tell you that there really is nothing here where you can see like a wart or a zit or anything where the filament switched. So that's really good. When you get it to work, it does work. Now, let's go to this. So I did put together a bunch of different pieces of filament into one long strand and tried to run a print. And I'll put a clip in here too that I filmed with my phone. Well, it looks like one of the filament connections went in and jammed the extruder. So that's neat. So I guess the blob where I fused the two pieces of filament together got stuck in the extruder. So that's a possibility as well. And I'll cut this and I'll run it again to see if the other parts where I fused it will do the same thing. But that's something to be aware of, that if you're going to fuse these pieces of filament together, totally possible it'll clog your extruder up. I think I can confidently say that it does work. This clogging the extruder where I just mashed a bunch of filament together, I would say that's probably user error, skill issue, if you will. If I had done it a little bit better, or maybe just been a little bit more precise when doing the actual fusing process, it would have worked better. And I feel like that this is just a possibility that kind of exists with a product like this. You are just kind of melting two pieces of filament together. It's not an exact science. I will say that the process of doing it is a little bit finicky. I found that you really do need to push the two sides of the filament together to get it to work. And if you don't, you'll find that they tear apart very easily. One other thing is that when you're putting the two pieces of filament together, you're probably using the end of a roll, so they're very coiled up. And when you're trying to take those two coils and push them together while simultaneously opening and closing this thing, it can get kind of annoying because the filament's trying to move around. But I do see a use case for this, and I will try it out some more with a bunch of the filament that I have left over that's on almost empty spools. I'm gonna go ahead and try this print again, see if it clogs again, and then I'll give you guys my final thoughts. Well, it almost worked. As you can see, it made it through one color change and then the extruder clogged again. So I'm just gonna call the test there. Some final thoughts on this thing are that it definitely takes some skill in getting used to. You have to make sure it looks like this rather than looking like this. If it looks like this one, it means that you pushed a little too hard when it was heating the filaments up and you just crushed it, and that'll definitely clog your extruder up. As far as picking this thing up, I can definitely see some use, and I probably will use it in the future. If you have a bunch of filament that you don't know what to do with and you were either just not gonna use it or throw it away, then I think the 30 or so bucks that this thing costs is worth the investment if it can save some filament that otherwise just would have not been used or gotten thrown away. It certainly seems like a safer option than trying to DIY this with maybe a heat gun or anything else to try to fuse the filament together. But one final drawback is that even after you fuse the filament together, you still kind of have to wind it on a spool yourself, which I tried to do here and it's a little messy, or you just have to put the filament somewhere and just dangle it and let it try to work its way through. Either way, I want to know what you guys think about it and if you would pick one of these up and if you find it useful. There will be an affiliate link in the description if you're interested in buying it, so consider using that affiliate link to support the channel. And remember, regardless if you push your filament too hard while you're fusing it or whatever else, if you subscribe, your prints will always stay buttery smooth. I'll see you guys in the next one.